Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and today we're going to be talking about more Barbie. We're going to be talking about Dracula. He's got a new movie out in the world, and then we've also got a new Gal Gadot movie. She also has been making some comment about Wonder Woman 3, and we have Blue Beetle coming up. Finally, I'm so excited for Blue Beetle now. And of course, we also then have Gran Turismo, which Sony's got a really weird release strategy for that. So, let's talk all about that. And with me to talk about all of these topics today, we have Angelina. How are you doing
Hi.
today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been one of those, busy weeks of the summer box office.
Yeah, there was a lot of movies to go see. I did not get to go see all of them, but I did go see Gran Turismo, and then I watched Heart of Stone here at home.
Yeah, hey, I went, and so this is where I want to kind of kick things off today. I know we have all these new movies coming out, but there's one movie that's still making bank at the box office.
Yeah.
And of course, that's seemingly, or it's looking like it's going to be the biggest movie of the year. Barbie, it's still, number one at the weekend box office. It's been number one for several weeks running since its release. And I want to today make a case for why, having now seen it three times, why I think Ryan Gosling deserves a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. Not just a nomination, but also the trophy itself. And not only that, but like let me make a case for why I think Barbie is more deserving of the Best Picture Oscar than perhaps a lot of people will give it credit for. And I think there's something, in the history of the Academy that we should look at. The very first Academy Awards, they had like two categories for Best Picture. They had Outstanding Picture, and then they had the most unique and artistic picture, which were both basically like Best Picture awards. And one of them was, usually the best outstanding picture was usually given to like a big studio picture that had like a bigger budget, like the fancy effects, like the bigger actors. And then the most unique and artistic one would be by today's standard, like, the biggest indie movie of the year. And I know that over the years of, well, after the first ceremony, they kind of got rid of the best unique and artistic picture. And since then we've only had Best Picture or Outstanding Picture. And retroactively they recognized, like, Wings, I think, was the one that won that award in the first ceremony. They recognized that as the first Best Picture winner, not the one that won the most unique and artistic one. So, but the
What year is
differentiation though,
this?
at when
What
this
year?
was,
Yeah.
I believe this was like 19, was it 20 something? It's been the 95 years of the Oscars. So the
You
first
mentioned a
ceremony
movie,
was
and I was like,
1929.
I'm sorry, Dan.
It
I'm
was
not that much of a nerd. Like, there's just no way that I could know that.
it was 1929, right?
Okay,
And,
there we
and and this is something I came across when we were doing some research for our Oscars coverage a couple of years ago
go.
on the podcast. But basically, like, to use that as my point of reference, here's what I mean, right? There's very few movies like every year that kind of cross that divide between a movie that is, got that the Oscar caliber acting and storytelling and, talking about the human condition, the way that Barbie kind of has that commentary built into it, and then also that, that movie that becomes a cultural zeitgeist phenomenon. Like we have had Barbie this year,
Well,
Top Gun Maverick last
I
year,
think you
right?
think that I'm going to disagree with you. I am not. I do think
Okay.
it'll win Best Picture. And I mean, I think it'll win Best Picture for more than just the box office. I think it'll win Best Picture because look at the set design, look at the music, look at the actors, look at the totality of how it is doing the message, how it is being received across the world, which is insane. You sent me some articles from a couple of people out of China actually that were remarking on how Barbie is, more than just for like a light feminism take. It's like really speaking and inspiring women across the world, which is really incredible. And I think they're going to be hard pressed to find another movie that says that and does that and speaks to
Yeah.
that. I think
Yeah.
Oppenheimer should win awards. I think Cillian Murphy should win Best Actor. I think Barbie will win
Yeah.
Best Picture. I don't think that that's even something somebody's going to
Right.
disagree with you with.
Well, I mean, and look, like the reasoning behind, like, so you mentioned, right, like this movie's challenging like gender norms and inequalities between men and women all over the world,
Yeah.
especially in parts of the world where it persists more so than, in other parts. Like in Western society, I think in general we are much more open, and things have progressed forward a lot more.
Yeah.
Let's say that, put it that way. Whereas like in China, in the Middle East, it's been banned in a few countries in the Middle East, but it's playing in Saudi Arabia, and that's that's creating all these new conversations over there. And China is challenging the societal norms, and at a time where change is already happening, a movie like this is only further driving the change further, and people are having conversations. So it's the movie that is generating a lot more than just oh, fandom, go buy the merchandise, get your I am Knuff hoodie or whatever. It's actually creating this zeitgeist moment, and not just certain parts of the world, but all over the world. It's this week, this past week, it's also crossed Aquaman, and it's crossed a few other movies like Minions, and I think it crossed like one of the Marvel movies. It crossed Captain America: Civil War at the all-time box office as well. Now it's kind of working its way up to, I think, the Fate of the Furious, which was the 8th Fast and Furious movie, and then it's working its way to the top 15, top 20 of all time. It's moving up the charts. So it's a movie that's making money. It's a movie that's also hitting with audiences. And when I said about Ryan Gosling earlier, let me quickly make a case for why I think Ryan Gosling truly is deserving of Best Supporting Actor. Now, the other big, contender so far would be Robert Downey Jr. for his portrayal in Oppenheimer, right? And his conniving, very methodical, probably his best performance of his career. But just look at what Ryan Gosling does in Barbie. His role as Ken is the complete performance. Hollywood loves their musicals. They love their song and dance, man. Like, and whether it's La La Land or one of the Singing in the Rain, the golden age of musicals. You look at Ryan Gosling's performance from the moments like where he's like, oh, it doesn't feel good, does it? When he's taken over with Ken Land, his Mojo Dojo Casa House, all of that, to where when he first discovers patriarchy, or towards the end, like with the Just Ken song, and everything in between in that performance. He gives you a more well-rounded performance, I believe, whether it's the serious moments to the lighthearted ones, to the singing and the dancing, as compared to Robert Downey Jr., where it's a very dramatic role, but a lot of it is just, it's like theater. It's dialogue, working off other actors, and talking scenes. Whereas I think Ryan Gosling's performance is much more complete, and I think that's why he is more deserving of that award as the Best Supporting Actor. So that's my case for why. I mean, not only that, but obviously Greta Gerwig should definitely get nominated for Best Director. I hate, as a Christopher Nolan fan, I hate to say, like, maybe Greta Gerwig should get the award for Best Director as well.
Yeah, honestly, she'll definitely score a nomination at the very least. I do think it might be a tight bid, but I do think she's deserving of it. I think she did a really good job of, and that was the conversation before Barbie came out. It was like, we want to have a conversation, but we don't want to push it. And I do think she found a fine line. I do, again, when we talked about Barbie, I felt like she could have gone further. And she kind of like rode the safety line with it. And I'm like, But
yeah,
for everywhere outside of, everywhere other than like the Western, sort of like the Western world, I think it was the right choice, because there are countries already that have banned it. And there are countries already that just barely okayed seeing the movie. I mean, Mission Impossible has grossed higher box office than Barbie in China, which is weird.
Yeah, but like China likes their big action spectacles, so that's probably where that comes from.
I know, but still, even in that being said, like seeing how Barbie is scoring in every other, really all of the states, our US, Canada, like Europe, like it's doing so well. And then when you get outside of that, it's not playing as well. And I think culture plays a huge part in that. Culture not having the conversations of inequality, not having the conversations about feminism and feminist beliefs, and that affects people going to see it, because it's like they're
right.
I mean, yeah. So
yeah, well, I mean, but the box office breakup is pretty even in terms of the split between international and domestic. Domestic has already crossed $500 million. And globally, well, internationally, Barbie's passed the 650 million mark.
Do we know
So
what country it's doing best in outside of the US?
I don't know, but like I can probably look that up. I would say the United Kingdom
Yeah,
probably is the
probably, right?
highest, because
UK, Australia.
that tends to be one of the highest
Mm.
biggest markets outside of the US. Like Mexico has got a decent
Mhm.
number. I'm looking at
Mhm.
it now. Australia is high. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, and that makes sense. Those
Yeah.
countries being the biggest ones outside of the US and Canada. But look, at the end of the day, also Barbie as what it means as a movie in the general pop culture zeitgeist. Like I was mentioning earlier, how Top Gun Maverick was that film last year. We have
Yeah.
seen like the Avengers movies kind of be that big movie, that water cooler movie. You have to go see it, otherwise you can't be part of all of those conversations that work with friends and all of that stuff. And I think the reason why, and again, to support my argument for like Best Picture, these are movies that kind of find a way to talk about the human condition in a way that is so fundamental, and that's why they connect with all audiences. They don't just connect with certain people, certain groups of people. Like Oppenheimer is the kind of movie that if you are a fan of Christopher Nolan, you're a fan of those kind of historical epics, you'll go watch it. Similarly, like Ridley Scott and Napoleon
Yeah.
coming out later this year, that's going to be one of those movies. Killers of the Flower Moon with Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio. Those are movies that they won't draw every audiences from every corner of of society, but they will draw the audience that kind of goes and watches those historical epics and likes
Looking
those genres.
ahead, I
But
do not think any of those movies are going to displace Barbie.
no, I mean, even Dune,
Right.
like part
Even
two, I don't think
yeah.
is gonna get that far.
No. Are they
It's
have they even decided whether or not they're actually gonna release it on time?
it's it is as of right now on the schedule, so I don't think they're
I feel
moving
like
it.
they're gonna move it. I really do.
Um,
I
I
don't
mean, if
know.
they do though, like the biggest issue that I see, which is a significant one, is they won't get IMAX screens for months at a time, because IMAX
Oh,
has
because
a
they'd already rented it out,
there's
right?
no competition. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, they can obviously change the engagement, they can move it, but I think the kind of unprecedented run they're gonna have with IMAX, where you can go see it in IMAX for like months in a row.
Yeah.
If they're moved it the next year, there will
And
be
I
more of a
will be
crunch.
honest, Dune
So
has such a cult following. Dune is
it
like
does,
people are like die-hard Dune fans. And I
right? But
didn't even recognize it until after. I think after I had seen it with you guys and then we talked about it, I was like, wow, this is some sort of weird phenomenon and I've never even heard about this book
yeah.
before. I tried to read it. I accidentally left it in the hotel. And then I never got
Well, maybe like get an ebook
Yeah,
version.
I'm like, no, I've always
Yeah.
I love books. I've always read a lot of books and I used to read a lot of sci-fi. That was also why it was so weird to me that I was like, Dune? What is Dune?
It's I mean, it's one of those like seminal novels in the sci-fi
Yeah.
genre. So it's definitely one of those movies that, well, one of those franchises that if you're a fan of sci-fi, you have to know what, or you
Yeah,
gotta check
that's
it
true.
out. But ultimately, I just don't think Dune, or Killers of the Flower
I
Moon,
don't
or
think
Napoleon,
yeah.
or
No,
even the
not at this point.
Marvels or Aquaman, like and the Lost Kingdom. None of those movies I
Ugh,
think will have the wide appeal of Barbie.
Aquaman is
You
not
know?
going to come anywhere near Barbie.
Well, the
Did you
first
just
one made a
did you just see
billion,
that? I was like, "Bleh."
but I
It's
just
so
don't think
weird.
this one is gonna get that close. Right.
Especially not with all of the backlash about Amber Heard. People have been waiting for this movie for a long
And
time. I feel like
and the recent
overall people
DC
are like,
track record.
we don't care.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Jason Momoa, I'm sorry, we love you, but like we don't care.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think getting back to what I was talking about earlier with Barbie, I just think when you talk about things like whether it's Margot Robbie for Best Actor, female, or whether it's
Yeah,
a Best Supporting Actor male with Ryan Gosling,
you know,
Best
I
Director, Best
don't know if
Picture.
I support your case for. I think he'll get nominated. I don't think he's gonna win because
But he
Ken is like a
should.
2D character.
Hmm. But is he though? But is because he starts out that way, but by the end of the movie, like I've seen this movie 3 times, so that's why I'm making the case now, because I think more than ever, like each time I'm getting more of the nuances to his performance. It's one of those things where you notice it on the first watch, but you
You know what?
appreciate it more every
I
time you
don't
see
think
it.
Robert Downey Jr. should win either. I don't love
I
either
think
of
it was
them.
too limited a role in some ways, because while it was, I
Yeah,
think in
and
a
I felt
different
like
year.
he could have taken it further. And no, I disagree with you. That's not the best job he's ever done in his career. I've seen him do
Really?
way better. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying up
Yeah.
until now. I mean, up until now in his career, I believe that is his best performance, acting performance. I would say, but
No.
but still, like I for me, what kind of drives the case home for Ryan Gosling is the fact that he had like to do complex choreography for multiple set pieces in the movie, as well
It
as
doesn't
all the.
win. That doesn't win. If it were the Tonys, yeah. But at the Oscars, like, no.
I know it may. Okay, I'm not saying it's gonna win, but I am saying like I'm making a case like right now that as a complete overall performance
Okay,
from
I
end
would
to
like to
end.
put a pin in this conversation, and then, like a month before the Oscars, we can talk about it, because
Okay.
I haven't seen some of the contenders, and I just have a feeling that although I do not think any of the movies coming out in the rest of the year are going to displace Barbie overall for Best Picture or Best Actor or Best Set Design,
That's a
I
big one
think
too.
one
Yeah.
of them might. Yeah, I definitely think it'll win. I do not think. I I don't think they're gonna take home Best Supporting. I don't. I don't. I see everybody being nominated. I even see America
Rebecca
Ferrera
Farah.
being
Yeah.
nominated for
Best
Best
supporting actress.
Supporting
Yeah.
Female. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I feel like she could win. For some reason, something about Ryan Gosling's performance as Ken, like, I don't know, it just like
Okay.
here.
All right. All right.
But I needed it to hit here. You know what I mean? So
Hey,
we'll
look,
see.
let's agree to disagree. I
Yeah.
highly encourage you to check out the movie again. It's gonna be on
Maybe
Max
I should just
soon.
watch it again. I just
You
need to go
should.
see it one more
It's
time.
it's so much fun. So much fun. Like where when Margot Robbie Barbie comes up, she's like, hey, would you like to basically ask
Dan,
me
would you
out?
like to
And he's like,
share with everyone how many movies you went to go see this past week?
I
Like,
went to see the Meg this for the second time. I saw Barbie a third time, and then I watched the last Voyage of Demeter. But like still like probably
did
my
you see
favorite
Heart of
moment
Stone?
again. I saw three, but then I binged all of Hijack on Apple TV Plus at Idris
Okay,
Elba.
that's another show that I've been told I
It
have to see.
in one go. Like I literally went from the first minute of the first episode to the last minute of the last episode. There's like 7 or 8 episodes,
How
and
long
I
are
was
they?
hooked. I think they were like between 40 and 50 minutes a piece, so they're not like
Maybe I
short
should go see
episodes.
that. Yeah, I was like,
But
wow.
like the events take place in real time.
Did you take a break? Did you eat food? Like, should I be
Well,
worried
I
about
was
you?
eating at the beginning, and then I guess I didn't take a break though. It just kept running. Like I was like, let's just go, let's keep going because
You
it's
didn't
it's
even
it's
have to go
addicting.
pee? Like, what?
No, I was like, I can hold it in, and then I was just like, let's just keep going because the show was too good.
Idris
It was.
Elba, you're winning an Emmy. Dan didn't even take a break to go pee. So
There should
crazy.
be an Emmy for like watching TV with
Yeah,
devotion. Like
people
that
could
should be
not look away. They
people
they
could not look
risked
away.
their own health in order
Right,
to watch.
like Hijack wins like for that
Hijacked
show.
wins.
Yes.
Hilarious. Yeah, no,
Okay.
I've been told by a few people I have to watch that show. So I actually think that might be something I start this week.
You should. It's and there's so much good stuff on Apple TV Plus. I was like, I need to get this
Yeah.
out of the way so I can go through 10 other shows on Apple TV Plus that I haven't checked out yet.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's just that's fantastic. And I'll probably go see Barbie again this week, maybe.
Here we go.
I'll find a reason. It's just so much fun. It's so
You're
extremely
gonna go see it
watchable.
again? A
I,
fourth
I
time?
I don't. I actually don't mind it because it's so much fun. I still like the first sequence in the movie blows me away.
You
I like when
guys,
Ryan get the.
he's lost
It's.
his
I
mind.
love this movie. I love this movie.
All right.
It's the hitting me like Top Gun Maverick hit me last year, and I didn't
You
see
saw
Top Gun
Top Gun
Maverick three
Maverick how
times in
many
the
times?
theaters. Well, I saw it like twice in theaters, 3 times, 2 times at home. I have probably gonna watch it
I
again
still haven't
soon.
even seen it yet.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. You know what? I think that's gonna probably bring this conversation to a
All
close
right,
because
guys.
now you're just offending me by saying you haven't seen that movie yet.
I haven't seen it yet. What is
You
it
know what?
on? I need to
It's
watch
on
it.
it's
HBO?
on Paramount Plus.
Oh.
Paramount Plus, yeah. Which also like there's that other Zoe Saldana show, where she's like a marine or a seal, The Lioness. You should check that out on it's like probably one of the best things on TV today. That's one of my next to watch on
I've
Paramount
been watching
Plus.
Friday Night Lights. I went in the exact opposite direction. I don't know why. One day I was just like, you know what show people still talk about? Friday Night Lights. I'm gonna watch that show.
Hey, let me know how good it is.
Actually,
I've
I
never
like
seen
it.
that.
It's
Okay.
very cheesy 2006, but it's hitting on like my little Southern girl roots. So it is.
Yeah, it's like one of those like cable, like you would watch that show on cable, but now it's on
every
streaming. Yeah.
Friday night
Yep. Yeah.
under the lights.
Awesome.
You know.
Well, we had three new movies come out this week.
Yes.
So of those three new movies, let's start off with the last voyage of the Demeter. It's a new movie based on the Dracula lore, on Bram Stoker's Dracula, the first, I believe, chapter of that big novel. And so it really treats the Dracula character in a way that we probably have not seen in the mainstream before. Looking at it, the trailers alone, like what did you think about this movie? And were you looking forward to it at all?
So I really wanted to go see this movie, but I got pretty sick at the end of last week and I did not make it. And I had to cancel my ticket. I loved the original Dracula. I read the novel, I don't know, when I was like a sophomore in high school. Like, I was a big English literature junkie. I've read like most of the classics. Dracula is one of the Paramount classics. It's such a good book. It is creepy, it's enthralling, but in a way you get to like actually sort of understand this monster that is Dracula, and he is truly like a 3D
The character.
monster.
Like there's
Like he's
there's
not,
more to it
yeah,
than just killing people, right?
exactly. Like he
Yeah.
is truly sinister to like his core. He truly it's like
Yeah.
he's a crazy monster serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's the one element of this movie that I really like because they didn't. I mean, okay, so the movie starts off a little
Well,
slow.
okay, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
So, my question is,
Yeah.
have you read the book? How close was the movie to the book?
I have not read the book, so I wouldn't be
Okay,
able to tell you how accurate it is
so I need to go
with
see it
regard to the
and
book.
see that.
But I will probably now watch because the thing is, it's not based on the entire book. This
Yeah,
particular movie is only based on the very first, I think,
it's a very
chapter of the
long
book.
book.
So right. So I mean, I don't think it will hurt from. I mean, I could
Yeah.
probably spare enough time to go read at least the part this movie covers. But like just having watched the movie, I will say the first like 10, 15 minutes of it are pretty slow in terms of how it gets going.
Hmm.
They do kind of like start laying the breadcrumbs pretty early in terms of like the fear of this character, which at the beginning is just more like this nebulous thing that people are scared of. You don't really get the hint that this is Dracula per se. If you were to watch this movie and you didn't know a single thing about Dracula, you could walk away from this movie not really realizing that you just watched a Dracula movie because the
Hmm.
common perception of what Dracula is, particularly if you watch something like Renfield earlier this year,
Yeah.
this is nothing like that. So you would have walked away thinking, "Oh wait, that was a Dracula movie." No, you would have until the credits where they'd say based on Bram Stoker's Dracula, or like
Yeah.
so. There's definitely like a slow build up. It's methodical. It's done well. I like the actors. With David Dasmalkian. I've always struggled with his last name. But he was in the Suicide Squad. He's been in the MCU. I think in the Ant-Man movies. He's playing He's playing like the first mate on the ship. I think the captain of the ship is played like the captain in the Titanic, like James Cameron's Titanic, because he's looked very familiar. And then of course you have Corey Hawkins, who was in the Godzilla, who was in the Kong movie with
Mhm.
with Sam Jackson and Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston. He was in that movie. He was in the new iteration of 24, which got canceled after one season. So he's had a bit of a hard,
Yeah.
like tough time getting into a franchise. But he was basically at the lead in this movie, even though it was
Mhm.
like a ensemble cast. But Corey Hawkins' character kind of ends up being the lead of the film. Ultimately, though, my experience with the movie was pretty good because once it picks up, it does a pretty good job of stringing you along, and you get a very classic monster movie where, again, this serial killer identity of this version of Dracula, you see the character kind of pick off
Yeah.
each of the people on the ship on their journey across not the Atlantic, but they're going from like I think like the not the Mediterranean. They're going from like the Black Sea towards Britain. Like that's the whole story. Like I think
Mhm.
from Romania or somewhere like that. And this movie is one of those movies where they never break the illusion for you. Like the suspension of disbelief is very easy to keep up with if you can stick with the movie in the first few minutes, because the movie takes itself seriously. There's no like self effacing or whatever, like I forget the exact term, but like there's no jokes made about like, oh, isn't this crazy, like of all the things that we're doing in the world, like we've got a monster that lives forever. Like nobody makes any kind of joke like that. There's
Yeah.
none of that in this movie. It's the kind of movie that you can fully immerse yourself into and experience a classic monster movie. And I really enjoyed having that experience because I haven't had that experience recently, because most horror movies nowadays rely on jump scares and stuff like that.
They all
This movie
do.
has a lot of psychological terror in there, but there's definitely some jump scares, and the set pieces are great. Like, it's all based on the ship, the Demeter.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to just watch these characters, because I love movies, whether it's space-based sci-fi where
Mhm.
people are stuck on a ship, or whether they're stuck on the ocean, or anytime there's a group of people stuck in one location and they're having to deal with a problem. You can either write that really well, or you can bore the heck out of your audience.
Yeah.
And this movie, I think, does a pretty good job of keeping people engaged. I will say though, it kind of flopped at the box
It
office, so I
did.
don't know
So
if it's gonna be a sequel.
I saw a Deadline article that was talking about how they knew when Barbie did as well as it did and it's continued to do as well as it has that it was
Yeah,
going to flop, and they just had to let it go and take the L, which is
right.
crazy, but also I feel like so many movies with the strike right now are literally like in between. What is the greater evil here? Do we just let it flop, or do we lose even more money trying to push it back? Like,
Right.
this
I
is
mean,
one of
and
the
this
movies
movie,
that they were just like, no, we just got to take the
it's
loss,
it's unfortunate because it made like 6-7 million, and I mean that's
which
probably
is
not
terrible.
near. Yeah, that's never gonna be enough for it to. I mean, maybe it has legs, but I mean, if 6-7 million is your starting mark, then I
Uh-huh.
just don't know how far you're gonna get. And it's a movie that definitely had like the creature effects with the Dracula character alone are probably where a lot of the expense comes from. But it's a very well visually very well made movie. Like I said,
I do have
there's
questions about the billboard because when I saw the
yeah,
billboard, the ad is weird. Like the trailer photo, what is that called? Because I don't know if I actually saw any actual billboards. You know what I'm talking about? Like the marketing graphics that they use.
like the well posters and like those kind of things.
Yeah, the Dracula looks weird. Dracula looks like an evil little gremlin. Why?
It is basically Dracula in this movie is sort of like a man bat is the best way I would describe it.
Oh man.
Because like it's at one okay, so there's maybe like one joke like in the movie, not one joke, but like the character kind of because at some point he starts to fly. Because of course it has wings.
Yeah.
And then like one of the characters says, "Oh, he can fly now." That was probably the only time that they made an attempt at sort of like poking fun at the crazy nature or like this unrealistic nature of the character. Because ultimately, when you see toward the end of the movie the character in its full form, he's got like wings. He has sort of a humanistic face, but not really. And then by the end of the movie, you see him kind of walking in like in London on the streets of spoiler alert, in the streets of London, because he does get to London. The ship crashes, but Dracula does get to London,
Mhm.
and they definitely set up a sequel. And Corey Hawkins' character is sort of like the character who's going to be hunting Dracula down. So if they were to do a sequel, it would probably be based in London in the Victorian era. So it's got like enough features that you could probably like put a coat on it and it will like you got hands and feet and enough of the facial features that you could pass off as human in a silhouette. But definitely when you see the character without any clothes or anything on the boat, it's terrorizing the characters toward the end of the movie. It's a man bat. That's the best way I can describe it to you.
Oh
It's a man bat.
man.
Yeah. And probably
Well,
more bat than man, but like definitely like
it
man bat would be like one
doesn't,
to talk
you
to.
know, based off of the novel, nobody ever really comes in contact with Dracula until Dracula contacts the guy who's writing the novel. So like the whole so I don't
Well,
really remember what they said about what he looked like. I don't, because it's more the idea. It's a psychological scare of Dracula.
oh
He's murdering these people. He's draining this woman of blood. We don't know what's happening to her. But the whole time, this
yeah.
novel is being written by a man who was like then commissioned essentially by Dracula, like to tell his story, and
Right.
ends up in
So
the
they hint
insane
some of
asylum.
those
That was
elements are
really
in some of those elements are in this movie. They definitely have the women who he's been feeding on. That character's in there.
okay.
She doesn't survive till the end of the movie. Basically by the end of the
She doesn't.
film,
She doesn't survive until the end of the book.
no,
She
she
dies
doesn't.
like halfway through.
Well, she dies like
Pretty sure.
most of the way through this movie. She survives till like the third act, but then she dies. Or as
When
far as I
she's
can
on
tell,
the
she dies.
boat?
She's on the boat. She's like they actually find her first, then they do some like blood transfusion to help her like heal up, but then eventually she's like, oh, I can sense the presence of this creature, and the creature can sense my presence. So they're sort of like connected because he's
Yeah,
been feeding on her
yeah.
this whole time. So they definitely, I think that they got some of those elements in there, but I do think they took some creative liberties based on what you're talking about
Okay.
in terms of what the original novel was versus what this movie was, because I think they probably did some of that to kind of give themselves a little more creative freedom in potential sequels.
Yeah.
But like by the end of the movie, the only character who encountered the creature to survive is Corey Hawkins' character.
Okay.
Everybody else on the ship is gone. There's this like the one particular part of this movie where I was like, oh no, they're gonna go there. It's that kind of a movie. Is when there's a young boy who's the grandson of the captain gets fed on by Dracula, and then eventually, apparently, once you get fed on, then your blood becomes sensitive to the sunlight. So if you stand in the sun, your body catches on fire. And so there's some gruesome moments where like literal like people catch on fire in the movie, including the boy. And so it's definitely a rated R movie in that sense.
Yeah.
And it was like for me, that was that Alien 2 moment where like watching the second Alien, I'm like, don't kill the girl. Don't you dare kill the girl. And like, the little girl survives till the end. And there's this like big payoff where like, what's her Sigourney Weaver's character? Why am I forgetting her character's name? She kills like the alien who's coming after the girl. Like in this movie, this is not one of those movies. The boy does get bit, and then the boy does, eventually die off like the other characters. So the movie definitely gets dark, but like ultimately, I think they did a pretty good job with telling a Dracula story that's very different than most of the Dracula movies, especially in a year when you got Renfield. Renfield is a very different kind of Dracula movie.
Yeah.
If you prefer your Dracula
so commercialized,
the old school mythological way, then you would probably want to go see The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I certainly hope it has a second life on streaming. Like these kind of movies sometimes
yeah,
better
I would
in
hope so
post-theatrical.
too. It just is so ill-timed. Like,
Yeah.
plus historical horrors like this don't always do well in general.
It is, yeah. It's also one of those. This is the kind of movie that like would have enjoyed a much more success if it had a viral marketing campaign, like Smile did, when they just like sent all those people, like paid them to sit behind home plate of baseball games and with like the creepy smile on their face. So you're watching the game, you're like, what is going on here? So you just go research.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate though. I think you're right. It did definitely fall victim to the strikes, and then how it puts the studios in a really awkward position. How do you promote this movie ultimately? And it was a movie that was probably going to struggle regardless, but the death knell was the fact that with the strike, there really wasn't much they could do to promote this film. And it wasn't the only movie that came out this week either. Like you went to see Gran Turismo. Turismo has its own like weird release strategies. So we were talking about it before the show. Like, what is going on with Gran Turismo?
Okay, so Gran Turismo was originally supposed to open August 11th and then got shifted opening weekend to the 25th. So what they were doing is now in select cities and select theaters, they are doing movie previews for Gran Turismo from Friday to Sunday.
2 weeks in a row. Like they're doing it this past weekend, they're doing it next weekend, but then the movie doesn't actually fully release until the week after.
But I don't get it. Like they released a statement and they were like, this is what we're doing. It'll act as a what do they call it? A kickstand starter?
Like a word of mouth. Like the statement from Sony said, the stars can't promote the film, but the audience can. So I think their goal ultimately here is to use word of mouth from the audience as a means to promote the movie.
I feel like that would maybe have more kick if Barbie wasn't everything everybody was talking about.
Exactly. Well,
like, it doesn't make sense.
Although, like, I can kind of see where they're coming from. They're kind of treating it almost like an indie release that has like a platform release where you go limited for a few weeks and then you go wide. And I think they probably thought Barbie's momentum would have gone down a few notches further by August 25th, which they may not be wrong about, because Blue Beetle's coming out this upcoming weekend, and that might be the first movie to actually dethrone Barbie at the domestic box office, and then it leaves a little more room for something like Gran Turismo. But like you said, this movie's audience probably to start out was fairly narrow as is. So you went to see it, and were there a lot of people in the theater?
Okay, so my preview that I went to was pretty full. The theater was pretty packed. I loved it. the audience loved it. You can tell an audience loves it when they are cheering and oohing and awing in the movie. And it's based off of a true story. All of the things that happened in the movie happened in real life. There's some really crazy, crazy stunt driving. Actually, the real life character, I forget his name, Jan
Yeah.
Marbellaro. Sorry guys. I was like,
Yeah.
the movie is based around him. He actually does all of his own stunt driving in the movie, which is
Nice.
super cool.
I did not know
Um,
that.
yeah, I mean, super, super, super
Yeah.
crazy, super awesome. We've got the guy from Wheel of Time, actually, who was in this movie playing uh, one of like the villains. He drives her another company that is like one of the
Like
contestants
one of
for
the
the races. Yeah.
for Formula
But
One,
let
right?
me pull
Yeah.
up some names really quick because I am drawing a
I mean,
blank
you obviously
here.
have Orlando Bloom and David Harbour in this. They were probably
So
the
I didn't
biggest
want to talk
stars.
about them yet, just because David Harbour saved the day. I could not care less that Orlando Bloom was in this movie. I feel like he actually took away from this movie. The movie started off so slow, and then it became incredible. Incredible. It was such a good movie. By the end of it, I was just like, wow. Orlando Bloom was not a part of that feeling at all.
I mean, what do you
I feel
think
like
about
the
the
less he
direction?
talked, less he did, the better the movie got.
So, do you think that was down to just the way the role was written? Do you think that was the directing, like Neil Blomkamp, like who directed District 9, Elysium, Chappie, which are all movies that like people have varying opinions on. I actually am a big fan of him, but like this is the first time he's done something like this, and as a director, his portfolio is limited, but his work tends to have a very particular signature
No,
directing
you know
style.
what? The movie was great. There was something about Orlando Bloom's performance that was like,
Didn't fit
yeah,
the
it was just kind of out of place. Like maybe that was based off of the character he was playing. He was playing Danny Moore in the movie, who is the marketing manager for Nissan. There are also some weird. He pronounces Nissan like three different ways in the movie. He pronounces
really
it, yeah. In like one of the first
well.
ways he pronounces it, he calls it Nissan, and then
Nisa,
he
oh.
and then he settles into Neeson.
Nissan is the way that a lot of British people tend to pronounce. Like, so I used to watch Top Gear, right? Like, and
Yeah.
like Jeremy Clarkson, like one of the hosts at the time, he would call it Nissan because in just this British. I'm like,
So no,
who
no.
calls it
Okay, so he
Nissan?
settled into
It's
Nissan. That's what he
right.
settled into. But the first time he said Nissan, which I don't
This
actually.
is
How
how
is it
I would,
pronounced in the like by the Japanese? Do we know?
I would, I would probably say Nissan, right? I'm pretty sure
Nissan.
that's how they pronounce it. Yeah,
So he pronounced it like Nissan, like the very first time, and
that
then
might have been his
so
Australian accent.
yeah, it was very weird. It was very strange. Like I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And then there were a lot of things about this movie that I kind of like. My head picked up at the inconsistency. I was like, what? Most people might not notice that, but I always notice those things. Also, okay, so he's playing Jan Mardenborough. I'm so sorry for my complete lack of like. I was like, what was that man's name? So it's based off of a true story, as I said. I think Archie Madekwe. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Wait, yeah, he was
Madekwe.
in that Apple TV Plus show with Jason Momoa called C. That's where I first saw him.
Oh,
He plays like Jason Momoa's son in that
he's a
show.
cutie. He does a great job.
Yeah.
I think he does an awesome job. I also the the graphics in the movie are super cool because there are a couple times where they really show, spoiler alert, sorry, sorry
Mhm.
guys, they show him physically focusing on the racetrack and sort of like recentering himself by way of literally
Imagining
breaking apart the car into every single piece and bringing it like expanding it out and then bringing it back in as like an electrical car as if he's playing the game. It was like probably the
Ooh.
coolest sequence I have ever seen. It was literally because you know exactly what it's supposed to mean. No words were needed. Like it was probably the coolest sequence I think I've ever seen in any movie, especially how
Nice.
they did it. Like in a lot of like Bond movies or whatever, they have like tech and they like stretch stuff out, and you're like, it looked like that
Yeah.
on like a grander scale. It was super cool.
Nice. That's probably like I don't know how much of a callback that is to the Gran Turismo games themselves, but like that might
I
be
never
where that's
played these
coming
games.
from.
Did you play these
Well,
games?
I played a few of them. I was always more of a Need for Speed guy, but
Okay.
like Gran Turismo games have always been like fun to play. You need to kind of be more of an actually good, like you need to know your driving mechanics better. It's not really like an arcade style game
Yeah.
in that sense, although there's like some ways to kind of get that experience out of it. But definitely like Gran Turismo is one of the, I mean, and then I was like, I've been following this story since when it actually was going on. I at the time was working at ESPN
Mhm.
and they were like covering like when this was a real thing in real life where they brought all these gamers and then all these gamer kids like, hey, can one of you guys actually drive for real and be on the Formula
Yeah.
One circuit? And so it was this really like unique story, and Nissan in real life too were of course the ones who kind of made I don't know if they did like a show out of it or if it was just a competition. They must have done something in like that, but to then see the announcement that they were going to make this movie, to now have this movie come out, as someone who didn't get a chance to see it this past weekend, everything you just mentioned, including that whole moment where the way he's, yeah, anytime you can visually tell a story in a way that is uniquely different at a time when racing movies come out all the time. Ford versus Ferrari was like, I think, the last great racing film. Of course, Fast and the Furious movies are no longer about racing,
Yeah.
but for the most part, they are. They always try to get you like one of those drag races somewhere in the movie, but generally speaking, they're not about racing anymore. So to watch the trailers for this movie, and then David Harbour, of course, is
He's
anything with
so
David
good.
Harbour,
He's
I will
so
go
good.
watch because he just has the right kind of. He seemed like he was so underrated to the early parts of his career. Even like the movie when he did his version of Hellboy, I think is underrated. But
Okay,
every
so remember when I brought up Hellboy? Because I
yeah,
really just had no idea. So he played Hellboy?
he did for like one movie because like was it Ron Perlman who played the Hellboy in like all the previous films, but then they rebooted it, and then David Harbour's
So that's not the
version.
reboot. Low key loved the reboot. I was a big fan of Hellboy when I was younger, okay?
Well, he
So it
played the
makes
newest
sense.
iteration. It didn't do very well though.
It's fine. It's fine.
So, but I mean, you would recommend it, like if because it's gonna be in
Oh,
limited release for
yeah.
another week, and then people can go check it
So
out.
I would definitely go see it. I mean, it's a beautiful story. It's a true story. I mean, there's something about the movie is so overall well done. Don't go see it for Orlando Bloom. He's not worth it. And as he was my high school, like my crush growing up, not even my high school, my childhood crush. I was so
Right.
sad. I was like,
Will Turner
what
and
is this? Yeah, Will Turner. I was
Will
in love
Turner.
with Will
Yeah.
Turner. But David Harbour just makes this movie. I mean, the stunts are crazy. You're on the edge of your seat. You're scared. You're exhilarated. You're excited. You want to cry when the main character cries. You want to celebrate him. And when they win, it is something else altogether at the very end.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and I think everyone in that theater felt the same. So I would go see this movie. I would go see it in theaters too because the sound, the lighting, everything. I feel like it really played a big part in how the movie was received. I was on the edge of
Yeah.
my seat for 90% of this movie, and there is one very tragic accident in the movie that I don't even know how they filmed that. It was the craziest thing I have ever seen, and it apparently happened in real life. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well, look, this movie, the feedback I've gone from other people who have gone to see it is the fact that the racing sequences are some of the best ever put to film. And then overall, outside of that, like you said, some of the stand-up performances. So, and you're giving it a recommend. So I'm definitely gonna go try to
yeah,
find it in one of the theaters nearby for this upcoming weekend. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be playing Friday, Saturday,
mhm.
Sunday, and then next week it's gonna be playing everywhere. So yeah, let us know what you guys think. If you went and saw it already, like, are you guys gonna go check it out again? Or if you haven't, then are you interested now, having heard us talk about the movie? And of course, hit the like button and subscribe. We will talk about it, I'm sure, again in the future as more people get a chance to check out Gran Turismo. But now let's move on to talking about the third movie this week that was brand new. This one was actually not a movie that ended up on the theater screens, but rather this is a movie you can go check out on Netflix.
Yep.
Heart of Stone. So Gal Gadot playing basically like a version of sort of Ethan Hunt in this Netflix equivalent to a Mission Impossible
Yep.
franchise. What did you think about this movie? What did you think about Heart of Stone?
Okay, number one, I love Gal Gadot. Do I think she's the best actress on planet Earth? No, no, I do not. Do I think she's really good in this movie? Yeah, I think this is probably the best movie I've seen her in outside of Wonder Woman, like the original Wonder Woman. And I thought Wonder Woman was pretty good. I feel like that was probably the best one she's done. Um, I love Jamie Dornan. I did not expect him to be the villain in this. Spoiler alert.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
that either. He's that's not in how it's portrayed in the trailers. In the trailers, they make Alia Bhatt's character sort of feel like she's the villain of the
No,
story.
it's Jamie Dornan all
Okay,
along.
okay, that makes
And it
okay.
was so like, oh. And then, but it was kind of one of those moments where you're like, not surprised, but surprised. You're like, that just took a turn that I truly did not anticipate. But okay. I love Matthias. I am the worst German you'll ever meet. Schweighofer? Schweig. So he's in this movie. He was also in Oppenheimer. I love seeing him. I don't know how to pronounce his name for the life of me. I'll learn, I swear.
Oh,
He's
Matthias Schweighofer. Oh, I could. That's
yeah,
probably the best I can
exactly.
do.
Yep.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
no, but
Yep.
yeah,
I think it's Schweighofer, but like I don't.
yeah.
My German cousin will probably watch this and be like, "We need to get you back to Germany ASAP." I like Aaliyah Bhatt. What else is she in?
Oh, Alia Bhatt is like one of the biggest like Bollywood stars today, like
Oh,
working in the Indian film industry.
yeah.
She was so if you saw RRR, which was like probably the biggest movie to come out of India last year in terms of just a cultural zeitgeist
Mhm.
impact, she was in that movie. She played the love interest for one of the main characters. But outside of that, she's mostly a Bollywood actor, like the
Mhm.
Hindi film industry specifically. And she is probably the biggest reason why she's in this movie is because, and if you look at the rest of the cast, they've got a very international cast in this film. I think Netflix knows it's a kind of a by the numbers the way they
Well,
cast
I
these
wouldn't
movies
even
because
give
they want to
Netflix
expand that
credit for that.
franchise.
As Gal Gadot says, it was one of the things because she's actually the producer on this movie with her husband. She and her husband produced this movie. I think it's one of the first that their production company has finalized and put out and released. And she
Okay.
was determined not only to have this story be from the female perspective versus just like a male version of Ethan Hunt. She really wanted to like create a fully dimensional feminine movie.
Yeah, not just Ethan
Yeah,
Hunt, but like a woman, but like something that's
I don't
right. I see what you
know
mean.
how well she did that, or maybe she did it so well that it wasn't even like noticed. You know what I mean? Like when I was watching the movie, it wasn't something that I was like, that's just a man. No, I just think it's very Mission Impossible esque. The mission itself, it's mission oriented. The mission shifts. Her character has a very like Ethan Hunt like character arc. She is doing the thing. She does a lot of her own stunts, which is super cool. And overall, I would watch this movie. Like, watch it from home. Just turn it on. You just gotta. I like movies that I can stay home and watch now. I feel like so many movies are moved in the movie theater. I'm getting overwhelmed with it. It was too much too soon.
What about like so I wanted to compare so I was looking this up, right?
Yeah,
Because last year there was another movie that was kind of in the same genre. It had Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, Captain America
I
in
do
it. And
remember.
of
Yep.
course Ken,
Drive?
Ryan Gosling
Drive.
Ken. No, it wasn't not Drive. It was called The Gray Man. It was
Oh, yeah,
directed
yes.
by it was either directed or it was produced by I think it might have been both by the Russo brothers who like did the
This
Avengers, the
is
last two
better than that.
Avengers. Because like in that movie, I mean, that movie like left me thinking Ryan Gosling is just doesn't have the acting chops to play anybody other than just like somebody who's that very stoic, action kind of a star, but then like of
He
course
got you
Ken
with
kind of
Ken.
changed
Maybe that's
it
why Ken
completely.
is hitting you so hard. You're like,
Hitting me so
"I
hard.
just thought that he was a
Right.
one-dimensional man."
But like, well, yeah, but like that's the reason that when I looked at the trailer for Heart of Stone and I looked back at my experience with the Gray Man, I was like, it seems like it's kind of the same deal. Also, in the sense that they had like one of the big like action stars from South Indian cinema be in that movie to kind of set up a spin-off, and I think that that movie was set to kind of kick off a franchise with sequels, spin-offs, and other kind of subgenre like
I would
prequels even.
actually say no. This is
Yeah.
more grounded. The Gray
Okay.
Man was a little bit the marketing, if you remember on that, was so heavy. The marketing, like, was
Well, because like Chris Evans' character
big.
was this crazy over the top
Yeah, and
mustache
then Chris
twirling
Evans'
villain.
character, he was, like, bigger than life. Everything in this movie is super grounded. I will give it that. It's more it's more in the same step as Bourne, Mission Impossible, or Bond. It definitely takes after those. And I think in Gal Gadot's latest Flaunt article, she actually talks about how those have always been some of her favorite movies. She really loves the action genre. Um, and those are her inspirations. It definitely follows in that line. It's not the Gray Man. The Gray Man was like you had to suspend belief in a way, and it created this like bigger than life
Yeah.
sort of environment. This is not like that. The team she's originally working for is MI6, and then she's actually like a double agent, and but it's not as like hokey as the Gray Man was.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I didn't think Gray Man was super hokey, but I did think Gray Man like kind of pushed the boundaries like of like staying grounded at times, and definitely. So yeah. Well, I mean, not having seen this movie though, like the way you're talking about it, it seems like certainly just the Jamie Dornan character
I
in
think
it
the
alone makes me interested.
as you love Mission Impossible as much as you do, you'll
Hmm.
love this movie.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it now. I mean, it's on Netflix, so
Yeah.
it doesn't take much. You could just turn on your TV and pop on Netflix. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I do you think this is a movie that kind of set up some sequels and spin-offs along the way?
Absolutely, 1000%. I think not only do they have a sequel in the works, they actually, I think, want to create their own, uh,
Fran-
their own,
Franchise out of this?
yeah, it's
Okay.
a goal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's they're not very subtle about like the way they've kind of with the Gray Man or with Heart of Stone trying to set up new action franchises over at Netflix, kind of
Are
creating their
they,
own
they're not coming out
franchises.
with another Gray Man, are they?
Well, they did announce that they were going to do a sequel, and then they had a few spin-offs set up from that movie. Kind of like what they did with the new John Wick. Well, not the same studio, obviously, but like
Yeah.
with Lionsgate, they set up a spin-off at the end with the last scene in the movie. They definitely have a fifth John Wick in the works. They've got that spin-off with Ana de Armas.
Yeah.
So I think like Netflix it knows now, like from a business perspective, the way they cast these movies from with some of the biggest actors from different parts of the world so that they can potentially like spin off those characters in their own movies as part of the larger franchise,
Mhm.
but also just doing more sequels. But yeah, hey, let us know, guys. What do you guys think about Heart of Stone? Have you seen it yet? Is it something that you're interested in now, or is just not something you're going to want to check out? Gal Gadot, of course, is naturally charismatic, and her charm probably is one part of the reason why you want to check this out. If you're a fan of Jamie Dornan, or if you're a fan of Bollywood movies and you want to see Alia Bhatt in this film, you can always go and look at that for that reason too. Now, let's talk about a little bit more of that Flaunt article that you mentioned earlier, because not only in that Flaunt article did Gal Gadot talk about promoting Heart of Stone, and then she also talked about her return to the Fast and Furious franchise and Fast X,
Yeah.
but the thing that really grabbed the headlines was what she said about the character of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 3.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, you read the article in Flaunt, you read the article in Variety where we got some insider knowledge from Warner Brothers in regards to Wonder Woman 3. What is going on with Wonder Woman 3 and why
It's
is there such a
it's giving me Henry Cavill flashbacks, is it not?
yeah,
Because Henry Cavill said the same thing. I met with James Gunn. They assured me everything was good. And then
because he said that that they're not moving forward with him. There was more definitive thing there, but then there was something
no,
with Ben Affleck.
remember before that, Henry Cavill had announced that he was
That
coming
he was
back
coming back. But
after a
I don't
meeting
know if
with
that was because
James
of James
Gunn.
Gunn. No, because if I remember that correctly, that was because he was in Black Adam, and this is before James Gunn got the job for DC Studios, and they were like, so he was like, I'm back as Superman. The cape is in the closet. I'm coming back, and he put out the picture with the Instagram, and then he had a whole video, and then I think James Gunn comes in, and then with Peter Safran, they're like, we got new plans, and they met with Henry Cavill and told him that
They're
we're
not.
not going to move forward
Okay.
with you as Superman. But then Ben Affleck, there was a meeting with Ben Affleck. They also had a meeting with he was Batman in the DCEU, and walking away, James Gunn said, "Hey, we would love to have him direct with us in the future. He seems very interested." And then when Ben Affleck was asked about it, Ben Affleck in an interview, I forget with which outlet, he said, "I never agreed to direct. I just don't think I would be the right fit for the new DCU and directing in that world." So there was a little bit of controversy there, like. So James Gunn said that he is super interested, and then Ben Affleck says, "I am not." So there was a little bit of like, who's like, was it a game of telephone? Like so they walked away
Yeah,
with
what
different
is going on with
impressions, or
communication here?
but like that's I think a very similar situation to what's going on with Gal Gadot, because now this is so I don't know if you remember, but Gal Gadot has said this not just once, but at this point she's mentioned these kind of literally the idea of Wonder Woman 3 happening under the new DCU 3 times. She said it once. I saw an article in Deadline, or I think it was Deadline and Hollywood Reporter a few months ago in June. And then there was another interview that came out with comicbook.com where she said something similar. And then with Flaunt Magazine, all for promoting Heart of Stone, by the way. So they did all this in June because they were anticipating a strike. All that stuff is now coming out because Heart of Stone just got released on Netflix. But her statements are basically the same, that James Gunn and Peter Safran assured her Wonder Woman 3 will be happening and they'll work with her on it. But James Gunn and Peter
Do you
Safran
think
have
that's
not
a
denied
PR
that.
stunt?
I don't know, but because the thing is that, like I said, James Gunn and Peter Safran have not said anything to
Yeah,
deny
but
her
then
comments or
so
contradict
just to give
them.
everybody context, and we should totally post the link to this article with the
Yeah,
episode if we can, but to give everybody context, there was a Flaunt magazine article in which Gal Gadot was promoting Heart of Stone and said, James Gunn and Peter Safran have assured me that I will be a part of the DCU moving forward with Wonder Woman 3. Then there was a Variety article that came out that directly contradicted to that was supposed to come from an insider from Warner Brothers Entertainment that was like, this is absolutely not the case. Wonder Woman 3 is not a go. She will not be a part of it. We have not okayed that. Like, directly contradicting everything that she said in the Flaunt magazine article. And as you're saying, in previous articles prior to that. So it raises a lot of questions of this back and forth. And that's what part of what makes me wonder if it's a PR stunt. Or maybe she wasn't supposed to say anything yet because they haven't done their work on the back end. I don't know. It's weird.
yeah, because right, but like it would be confusing that she would say that, because wouldn't you think that they would have told her not to? Because here's the thing, James Gunn has hinted that the plans they have so far announced for the new DCU aren't exactly complete. Like they purposefully have held some stuff back
Yeah.
because it would be too much of a spoiler in some ways, like regarding like where the stories are going. So I don't know if that connects to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman 3 potentially, but like in the Flaunt magazine, she said, and I quote, like she literally, like not just saying, "Oh yeah," like paraphrasing whatever James said. She said, and I quote, like, which was like, so it seems like every time we get a new interview from her promoting the Heart of Stone, she's making more and more direct statements about Wonder Woman 3 being a thing. So whether that this is just negotiating in the public eye, or whether this is a game of like broken telephone, or whatever is going on, it's just weird because I don't know who, like either someone's lying, because I don't know what either side has to gain from potentially making like a big issue out of something that, like, Wonder Woman 3 may not happen at all. Wonder Woman 3 may happen, but it may be years away, because if Superman Legacy is 2 years away and the other projects they've announced maybe 3 or 4 years away, the projects they haven't announced must be like 4, 5, 6 years away.
Yeah. But
So
that's also what kills me too is like the longevity of superheroes is so small. I was watching Heart of Stone and I was like, she has visibly aged. As she should. She's got 3 kids. I mean, she's beautiful, she's stunning, but can she still play the immortal Wonder Woman in 6 years? I don't
I don't.
know.
Yeah, and then the Paradise Lost series that they've announced, which is meant to be a prequel to Wonder
Yeah.
Woman before Wonder Woman was born in Themyscira. It's meant to be like this HBO Game of Thrones version of Themyscira on Max. That's not going to feature Gal Gadot unless there's some flash forward into the
Yeah.
older Wonder Woman. But yeah, I do wonder like where this is coming from and who has the wrong impression. But the fact that James Gunn and Peter Safran have not publicly refuted her comments is either because it's true that Wonder Woman 3 will happen, or it's because they don't want to obviously undermine one of potentially the leads of their new franchise. So who knows where this is going? I just hope that we get some sense of clarity on this in the near or hopefully even distant
Yeah,
future.
I just don't like the
So
back and
no.
forth on all of it. It's not good. It's
Yeah.
not good press.
No, it's not because it's now it's adding back it's attaching baggage to the new DCU,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why the new DCU is the reason why they're rebooting is they want to get rid of all the bad PR baggage from the
Yeah.
DCEU. But with statements like these and then contradictions from inside Warner Brothers, it's only further gonna muddy the waters for the new DCU before it even gets off the ground. So I sincerely hope that they can kind of clear the air at some point in the near
Yeah.
future, even if it does mean kind of politely saying Gal Gadot probably got the wrong impression. We're not actually doing it. I mean, there's ways to do that. Like recently,
And I quote,
and yeah, that's a hard one to kind of walk back. But like maybe they'll find a way. Maybe they'll find a way
maybe
to
that's also
resolve
why she
this.
said it.
Maybe. Hey, like this could be just Gal Gadot saying, "Hey, look, headlines. There's an interest. We
I
should
don't
probably
know.
do one.
Yeah.
Like maybe Wonder Woman 3
But
should
that's
be a
weird. I don't
thing."
think she would do
I don't
that.
know.
I don't know. I don't
No,
know her.
I
But
don't.
she
I wouldn't.
seems very like
Because that's a very
seems like a good
risky thing.
person.
Like, because if
Yeah.
it goes, if it goes, well, doesn't work out in your favor, then that could really
It's
hurt your personal
not
brand.
good. Yeah.
So yeah, who knows? Well, this is not the only big DC thing that's been going on recently. This upcoming week is Blue Beetle's time to shine. Blue Beetle, who James Gunn has also nebulously said is the first DCU character, but Superman Legacy is the first DCU movie, which leads people to believe, okay, so the Jaime Reyes version of Blue Beetle will probably be in the new DCU, but the events of this movie won't count towards the new DCU's canon. If you put all that to the side for now and you just focus on the movie itself, have you seen the trailers for Blue Beetle? Are
Yeah.
you part of the Blue
It's
Beetle
gonna be cute.
battalion?
Yeah.
Like, are you gonna
I
go
like
check
it.
this out?
Yeah, I'm gonna go see it on Thursday. I've already signed up.
Awesome, because I have been so excited. Like I am so ready for this movie to come out. This is when we did our most anticipated movies list for the rest of the year, like a couple of months ago. I was like Blue Beetle. It was like I think it was my number 2 most anticipated movie. I
Yeah.
forget what I put at number 1, but I was like, this movie has the potential to do really well if it connects with the audience, and it feels like a combination of Iron Man and Spider Man,
It
and
does. It's giving very
it's just
Marvel. Giving very
it's
Marvel.
got the yeah, and you know what, like ultimately I do believe this is a movie that's going to hit well with the Latino audiences because it's marketing so far. When you look at some of the articles I've seen about this, there's a lot of people who are looking forward to this movie they were asked like, okay, so what movies are you looking forward to, and they weren't primed with here's a list of 5, which of these are you most excited about. They just said Blue Beetle, and that was the percentage was pretty high, so it's got a lot of organic hype behind it.
It's
Zack
good.
Snyder,
It's gonna
who
be the first Latinx superhero.
yeah,
It's huge.
and there's some like big like David Ayer and Zack Snyder who are both big part of the DCEU, which I guess this movie is still a part of. They both like made public comments on Twitter or X talking about how they're gonna go see it and that we should support the movie. And in light of the actor strike, obviously Joel Mariduena and George Lopez and Bruno Marquezine, who are all part of this cast, they can't promote the movie themselves, but it looks like the social media Blue Beetle Battalion, like all the fans of DC have gone behind the film. I'm really excited to see whether this movie pushes some new ground or if it's more a by the numbers origin story. I definitely love all the family overtones in this. I think like when like Dom Toretto would love this movie, like because this movie seems like it's all going to be all about family. I'm really excited to go check this out. It's a different kind of superhero movie because we generally we tend to get a lot of superhero movies where the characters loved one dies, then that makes them a superhero, and then by the end of the movie, because of their quest to defeat a villain, some other person they love dies. Like that seems to happen in every Spider-Man movie, but like hopefully this movie is not exactly that. It kind of presents
Oh,
the
he's not
superhero in a different
Spider-Man,
light.
okay?
Yeah.
He's not
I mean,
Spider-Man.
he's nuts, but right, which I think is potentially going to work in his favor, because at this point people are looking for something different. And I think this movie will be different, not only from any other DC movie we have seen recently, but hopefully it differentiates itself from even the Marvel movies, despite the fact that it looks like a Marvel movie, like you said. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
I'm
I
excited,
can,
yeah. I'm excited to
yeah.
go see it. I've taken a break from superhero movies, so it'll be good to get back into that for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. Hopefully, this thing is gonna
Yeah,
make all the money in the world. It's projecting to make like 30 million at the domestic box office opening weekend, which is
yeah.
not a very high number,
Mhm.
but hopefully that number comes in higher by the end of the weekend
Yeah,
than it's
absolutely.
projected for. If it overperforms out, that would make me really happy, because I'm a big fan of DC movies and they've really struggled recently. So I'm hoping that this movie kind of puts that franchise back on track towards at least, some decent amount of success. Like, I'm not saying this needs to become a billion-dollar movie, but if it makes somewhere close to 400, 500 million, maybe that spawns some sequels potentially. James Gunn
Yeah.
says, hey, you know what, we will do a couple more of these. So who knows? Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you guys excited to go watch Blue Beetle? Is this the DC movie that's going to break the bad luck streak that they've been going for like the last year? It seems, with 4 of the last movies all underperforming massively. Is Blue Beetle going to break that streak? Let us know in the comments below. But that's not the only movie that's coming out this week that we're going to try to check out. I know I'm going to go watch Strays, which has Will Ferrell, and I think it's also got like Ryan Reynolds. It's basically like,
It's George
it's one
Lopez,
of,
isn't it?
I don't know if George Lopez is in it. Like, it's one of those movies that's kind of bringing back the live action talking animals genre back, because it seemed like those movies were sort of done for. But like, for the first time in a long time, I'm seeing what feels like
Oh, it's
A-list
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie
Jamie Foxx
Jamie
and Will
Foxx.
Ferrell.
So you've got like these
And
big
Eva
time
Fisher
actors.
too.
She's a great comedic talent in her own right, and so all of these A-list actors are taking on the voicing the roles of these live action animals who are talking. Of course, it's kind of like nowadays we see a lot of these movies happen, but they tend to be animated. Like, the what was the DC Super Pets movie that came out with Kevin Hart and The Rock, and it was and Keanu Reeves was voicing Batman, I think, too. So we're seeing basically probably a return to this genre, this subgenre of films that I used to love. I mean, they at some point just became like a direct to video kind of a genre, where like talking animals wasn't really like the Beverly Hills Chihuahua or the
Yeah.
Cats and Dogs movies. Like, they weren't very much appealing to a wide audience. But this movie, on the other hand, is rated R, and they've been very clear about it in the marketing, that this is not meant to be your family friendly talking animals movie. So you should not, like, it's in like big, there's a big R on the poster. It's like, it gets raunchy. The trailer, there's a red band trailer for this out
This is
there.
like one of those movies that I am gonna wait until it comes out to go see it. So you let me
Yeah.
know. I am not gonna go see it in theaters. I just won't.
Okay. Well, I'll let you. Maybe I'll be able to convince you to go check it out. Maybe on the second weekend, if it
Maybe
is good
I'm
enough.
like, I don't really love that genre. That genre for me
Yeah.
was kind of like, it's a fake talking animal. Oh, that's kind of funny. Okay, that's kind of funny. But I'm also really weird in the sense that I don't love Will Ferrell.
Really? Okay.
I don't love Will Ferrell. He has this sort of like stupid humor that is so dumb that like sometimes I just find it more like self-deprecating than anything else. I'm like, what is? I feel like you're insulting my intelligence by how dumb that joke was, and that's just his style of humor. And I am maybe one of 100,000 people on this planet that don't love Will Ferrell. I just don't love him. And so when people give me reasons and they're like, no, you have to go see this, like Talladega Nights, I'm like, okay, I'll go watch Talladega Nights. Okay, I laughed a couple times. Is it the funniest thing on planet Earth? No, it is not.
There's definitely like that movie wasn't like it. I had a mixed reaction to that film. I was like, it has moments, but it's not
Even
really.
Step Brothers, I'm like,
Yeah. Even Anchorman, like, I don't enjoy all of the Anchorman movies. I
yeah.
enjoy parts of the Anchorman movie.
And so that's my biggest thing is like I don't love him. Like some people love him. So do I think a lot of people are gonna go see this movie for him? Absolutely. I feel like it's his first movie in a minute. He took a break,
Well,
didn't
no,
he?
he's in Barbie. He's the
Oh,
CEO in Barbie,
he was in
right?
Barbie. I totally overlooked Will Ferrell in Barbie. Hilarious.
Yeah, I mean he's had a good year. He did that Christmas movie with the musical with Ryan Reynolds last year. I don't know if you saw this on Apple TV Plus. That was not the greatest thing ever, but it was certainly like if you like musicals, I guess you'll enjoy it. Like I was like, oh, okay,
It's
cool.
giving like Elf, but not quite.
I mean, Elf is probably like I think as far as the Will Ferrell's Mountain of Greatness, like I think Elf still sits like very much at the top for me.
Yeah, and
That's
even
probably peak
Elf for me, I'm like,
Will Ferrell for me.
like, meh. I don't know. I don't love him. It is what it is.
Even do you remember he was like he had a special guest appearance for like a recurring role for a few episodes in The Office once Michael Scott's character when Steve Carell leaves and Michael Scott's no longer the manager of Dunder Mifflin. Steve Carell's character, not Steve Carell, Will Ferrell's character kind of comes in for a few episodes. I don't even that was like I was like I don't know if that's the right fit, but I generally enjoy his stuff. Like I like the Daddy's Home 2 with Mark Wahlberg. Those are fun. Although I probably enjoy them more from Mark Wahlberg's character than I do for
Which is
Will
weird to me,
Ferrell.
right? Like Will Ferrell, SNL, forever.
Yeah,
Mark Wahlberg, a better comedian? Like, I wouldn't say that. It's just, I don't know. Something about Will Ferrell's humor to me is just not that funny. And it never has been. Even his old skits on SNL, I'm like, get off the stage. I want to see the other people. And look, people are going to come for me for that one. I know it. I'm throwing myself out there. I know you guys are going to be like, no, you're wrong. You don't know anything about comedy. I don't care. I don't love him. It's fine. I love some comedians. I love Dave Chappelle. I love old Eddie Murphy like comedy. I love Jason Sudeikis. I mean, some of the newer peeps, I'm like, me. But I truly do. I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I don't love Will Ferrell. There's something about his humor. I'm not about it. So this movie is kind of like, whatever. You go watch it. You let me know. And then I'll watch it when it comes out on my TV.
on your TV. Okay. By the way, you know they're doing a new Beverly Hills Cop movie with Eddie Murphy. They're doing a Donkey spinoff for Shrek, and they're doing a new Shrek movie. So Eddie Murphy's going to be part of both of those. And then also, did you know that We're the Millers just turned 15? That movie, I think, which like I'm like, really? It's 15 years old? Like, wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of movies that are hitting
So
big anniversaries, and I'm like,
yeah,
I got old. How did that happen?
mm-hmm. Oh, like I was watching Are We There Yet or Are We Done Yet? And like
Oh
both of those movies are
yeah.
like 20 years old now. I'm like, no, why? How? Like I
So
just don't.
funny.
It doesn't feel like they're 20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. But you know, so is Elf. I guess Elf is also like 20 something years old at this
Yeah.
point. But hey, Strays. It's the live action talking animals genre like making a return, but this time it's rated R. So like definitely don't take your kids, or if you do take your kids, make sure they're at least teenagers. Like
They
don't
won't
take
let
your
them in. Don't take your
5-year-old.
kids.
But yeah, let us know what if you guys go check out the movie, and if you like it, tell us in the comments below. Of course, if you like Angelina's take on Will Ferrell, or then hit the like button or hit the dislike button. You can let us know. Either
Don't hit
way.
the dislike button. Just call me out in the comments, okay?
Yes. Okay. All right. But also just hit the subscribe button because we do appreciate that. That helps us out a lot. We will be talking about, of course, so many more movies next week. As always, we'll be talking about Strays. We'll be talking about Blue Beetle. I'm so excited for that. And then hopefully we'll be looking ahead to Gran Turismo again because it will go wide a week from this Friday. So we'll be back with more to talk about next week. Until then, guys, go out, check out a movie, come back, check us out. We're doing new stuff every day. It's still the summer months out there. Get your sunlight before we lose all that extra sunlight and the daylight hours shrink.
It's on its way out.
It's on its way out. It is. It's like already halfway through August. I can't believe it. The time just like flies sometimes. But Anyway, well, it's been great talking to you, Angelina. We'll be back next week talking about Strays and Blue Beetle. Until then, have a great and fantastic week ahead.